Hello, can everyone hear me?
We can hear you, John.
We can.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. This is John Brothan. I guess today I'll be running our EDI answer hour. Melissa Parrish is out today, so she won't be available to be with us. But we will be going ahead with our EDI Trading Partners answer hour. And so hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'm sharing a PowerPoint. So as usual, we like to report what's going on these days with campus, and especially as it relates to EDI. We'll go through some brief updates that we've had since the last time this EDI answer hour occurred, talk about a couple of known issues, and then we'll kind of talk about future planning and then get right to everyone's questions, which I think is perhaps the most important part of what everyone's looking for. So there hasn't been as much activity in this last round since our releases. Our Thursday night releases are stretching out a little more. There is one planned for tonight, but I can go over the ones that we had in our last release. One issue that some senders were discovering was that for a brief period of time, campus was sending out both acknowledgements and re-acknowledgements on EDI batches sent to campus. Now, while it may have been confusing, what was actually happening was that they were simply generating acknowledgements and then a copy of an acknowledgement that had the ARC header on it. So for anyone who saw those re-acknowledgements coming through on the batches, you could just disregard those. They weren't actually re-acknowledging batches. It was just a copy of the acknowledgements. In addition, we also had some questions and some issues with FROIO2s were not appropriately updating the employer in campus. And so now when the FROIO2 comes through and it updates the FEIN, that does update campus. One important development that is not exactly EDI related, but I think it can help a lot of our EDI senders is there is now a WID lookup in campus, similar to what we used to have pre-campus. Trying to show a snapshot here of when you're in the system and you're on your dashboard, you should be able to go to submit a filing and then do a WID lookup. Provide a little bit of information and then try and extract that WID number. If you can't find a WID number, we're just finding that it doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't one there. So you can still always contact us and ask, to sort of confirm that there's not a WID. But I mean, obviously, this is a lot quicker operation for anyone who's trying to find those important WID lookups. Some issues that we're still seeing. One of the biggest ones that we're getting the most questions about is how the documents generated from EDI submissions, they're not looking correct. They're not generating at the right times. Some of the biggest ones are with CBs and SXs. They're not creating the NOI document correctly. One thing that we can say that is that EDI submitters can do on their end that helps these documents look better is, like, for instance, the IPs and the PYs. If you can make sure that your payment segment is on those transactions, that's what populates those forms. And so you can get that benefit payment information onto the form. It obviously makes much more sense. And another issue that we've seen that's kind of tripping people up as we get deeper into claims is that we're having sequencing problems after the RB. If you have a claim that you suspended then reinstated benefits, some are finding that their SXs are rejecting for sequencing. We've also had ABs reject for sequencing. So those are things that we're working on to try and get cleaned up so that those claims can continue to move along. Again, we always show the Campus Central webpage. Hopefully that's something everyone can kind of keep attuned to. If you're on our email list, you should get updates about campus pretty regularly. If you happen to miss anything, we try to put everything on the Campus Central webpage, including some of these meeting recordings and important questions that are asked. So that's a good one-stop for everyone who needs additional campus information. So here we are, questions.
John, this is Darcy. You have one in the chat. It says from Anne, I did an O2 change on the employee's name. The MTC2 was rejected. Error EE last name, element error text must be valid content DN0043 cannot be changed. Sorry, it moved on me. Cannot be changed with modify action. How did I get the employee's last name updated? Or how do I get the employee's last name updated?
Yeah, thanks, Ann. So I think I'd have to look into that error. So if you can, if this applies to just about anything, and the way they did the edits is that if you get the error message, cannot modify element, what it's probably saying, it's a number of different things, but what it's probably saying is you don't need to update that on an O2. It can be done on the next event transaction. So if, let's say you submitted a first report and it contained a piece of data, like say the name that you didn't, that is incorrect and you need to update it, it can be updated then on say the IP. So when you send through that new name, new last name, whatever it might be, that it would accept, and then you can assume that that data is then updated. I hope that helps.
Okay, your next question is from Megan. What should we use as a gross and net amount when we are listing the TPD benefits paid in the benefits section? Also, what do we list for the gross and net amount when we're adding the PPD benefit paid?
Thanks, Darcy. Great complex question. So I think we've touched on this one before. Temp partial is the one benefit type where the gross and the net are going to be a little different. So if, let's say you're submitting an IP and you had 2 weeks of temp partial payments being made, under the benefit type temp partial, your gross and net, if let's say the person had fluctuating earnings from week 1 to week 2, provide us the gross and net of those earnings in the second week. Some people, I believe the standard used to average it, but you can send us what the last applicable week was for the gross and the net. So if it was $300, you go $300 gross and net. If there happened to be an offset, like an adjustment, then you would adjust the net, up or down. So that's the way to do it for temp partial. If you're reporting more than one benefit type, each benefit type has its own gross and net. With PPD, don't quote me on this, but I believe it should always be the same as like, say if it was, you're switching from temp total then to or no, I guess the actual question would be, if you're paying both temp partial and perm partial, those nets and gross would be different from each other. You don't have to reconcile across those two benefit types. So the temp partial may be that lower gross and net versus the PPD, which is going to have its own if it's being paid on a weekly basis. So I hope that helps.
All right, John, your next question is from Tanya. When will the updated MNR 3.1 requirement tables be published to reflect the changes made since implementation?
Yeah, thank you, Darcy. Yeah, we do get this question a fair amount, and it's something we really want to tackle soon. Unfortunately, we just don't have the capacity right now to update all our tables. And one small thing that we're kind of looking for is to see if the IIBC can complete the new sequencing table, which is if those of you who are active or know what's going on at the IIBC, there's going to be a new sequencing table that kind of goes with all the core tables and publications. We'll try and update our little sequencing tables to that new one and hopefully have greater clarity across all of our published materials so that we can get it aligned with what's happening with campus. Because as we all know, there's some things that have changed since go live and through development, so that we'll try and capture all those better. So thanks.
Okay, your next question is from Jesse. Is there an ETA on when the rejections for updating the CACN using the Freud 2 will be fixed? I know that there's a bug in this, but have not received when this may be resolved.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. I believe I just checked on that again this morning. I don't think that's in tonight's build, so we're looking at perhaps another couple weeks. For anyone else who's familiar with this error, or familiar with the claim admin claim number in general, we've had some issues where campus is treating the claim admin claim number like it's matched data. And so if you get a rejection for that number, we can can sometimes update that piece of data internally. So when you make the request of us, we can make a change to that number so that you can then submit your next transaction. But for some instances, we cannot. And so we're trying to get the ability to either update that or to allow your transactions on the O2 to update it, because the O2 is also rejecting, or it's accepting but not updating. So we're trying to work both ends of that, and hopefully we'll have an ETA on that soon.
Okay, then Sarah asks, when submitting forms in campus, such as an NOBP or a healthcare provider report, etc., should we be receiving an acknowledgement? And if it's been accepted or rejected, who gets these?
Yeah, so maybe to step back a little bit. So so it's not my area of expertise, but if you are submitting forms to campus, I believe you get like an email telling you that your submission was successful. When it comes to EDI, you get an acknowledgement based on the EDI transaction, which would not be a healthcare provider report or an NLBP upload. That would be straight through either you directly through your eForm filing account or through your vendor provides those acknowledgements to you, along with potentially the form itself. If you're uploading, that's a completely different process and separate from EDI. So make sure that if you're doing something like, say you're uploading an NLBP because the PY transaction didn't work well, or you're trying to make it go along in conjunction with the EDI transactions, that you also do indeed send those EDI transactions to get the claim caught up in campus.
And then Kathleen asks, what is the right way to file the PY post award on STIP? EE $2,000, attorney $200, stat fees, attorney $1,000 for roll-off fees, attorney $50 costs. I completed the benefit segment using the temp total lump sum payment settlement 550, 2,200. I also did a payment segment for $1,250 for combined attorney fees costs using code 340, error stating that 340 is invalid payment reason code.
Yeah, that's a great question. Keeps coming up, and you're in good company because it's very confusing. And I always tell the backstory that before, more than a year ago in Minnesota, when we were getting prepared to go live with campus, we had a discussion at the IIBC in the EDI standard about this process. So we're all in good company on this. But so the way this works is that if you're making a lump sum payment, say an award or a STIP or something like that, and you're trying to structure that payment, the benefits and the payment segment. Now, what used to be our contingent attorney's fees, those are all considered now under the benefit type that they're reported. So it sounds like you did it correctly, where the 550 or the temp total lump sum payment would, in the benefit segment, would include both the amount going to the employee and the amount going to the employee's attorney. In the payment segment, you would have two payment segments under 550. One goes to the employee and the other one goes to the employee's attorney. Now 340, that's different. That's non-contingent attorney's fees. That's like Heaton and RORIF and the costs and disbursements and everything. That can't actually be sent in the payment segment per the standard. That's just an OBT. So whatever all those things are, if there's Heaton and RORIF and all that, gets lumped together in the 340, and that's just another benefit type reported under the OBT 340. So I hope that helps. I think maybe by the next time we have one of these EDI meetings, I'm trying to take down all of our different scenarios that people keep asking about. We'll try and show some examples of how that looks so that we can visually go through and do that together.
Those are all the questions that you have in the chat.
Thanks, Darcy.
This is Bridget. Just to clarify on that last question about the attorney's fees, the costs and disbursements and the RORAFs you would put under other benefits, and you would not put a payment segment for them at all. Is that correct?
That's right. Absolutely right.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a reminder, I am recording this and it will be posted to the website later, either today or sometime next week. I'm also downloading everything that's in the chat for the staff to transcribe and hopefully have your answers to your questions and keep track of them.
Thanks, Darcy. If anyone else would, EDI is a little more complicated than some of our other topics. If you want to come off mute and ask a question, that's certainly okay. Anybody? We appreciate all the EDI reporting that everyone's doing. We know it's been a big challenge to pick up release 3.1. Doing a complete changeover to reporting this way. It seems like everyone's doing their absolute best to try and get accustomed to this reporting style, and we're all certainly learning together. So we appreciate everyone's hard work.
John, you have another question from Nikisha. Is it possible to add more information on the WID lookup?
Yeah, what are you looking for, Nikisha? Would you like to have more things to look up besides the WID, or are you asking for additional ways of being able to pull it? Oh, yes. You know what? You took an idea right out of my own thought process. We're starting to see that. So Nikisha said, for example, for instance, the employer insured and FEIN numbers. Yes, so we are starting to run into that, and we appreciate everyone's patience with trying to pull up FEIN numbers. We've thought of that internally. That's the next step that we should probably have a process, because we're getting so many requests from everyone to try and find FEIN numbers, especially when it comes to older entities where it's a little harder to find an FEIN number, particularly those older employers that are maybe no longer active. So we'll try and take a look at that. That's a great feedback item. Thanks.
All right, hold on, it jumped on me. Jesse is asking, is there a way that the state can send back an edit for an SSN on an employee instead of the DOB not matching the SSN? We are seeing some claims that we have received a DOB edit, but it's in regards to the SSN not matching properly.
Yeah, Jesse, that's great feedback. The way that they did the system based upon that edit, they did it well. The message is the way it is because of the way they're doing the processing of it. But yes, I get what you're saying. It would be helpful to know that what is the exact piece of data that's rejecting. So we'll look into that as a feedback item and see if that's something we can change or not. I'm going to try and make it a little more exact as to what it is that's tripping your claim that's rejecting.
Okay, then you have a question from Michelle regarding the NOID. We issued a TPD payment after issuing the TTD. The Schroy CB was sent and accepted. However, the NOID is showing that we are discontinuing TPD when it should be TTD. Is this a known issue, or is this something I should report?
Yeah, Michelle, that is a known issue. It's one of the biggest challenges we're having right now is we've got a bunch of items logged on the CB because it isn't smart enough to pull exactly what's happening, so that it's nonsensical sometimes. So yeah, it isn't well known, and we've been telling everyone that if you do encounter that where the form comes back and it doesn't make sense, you can either create your own NOID or modify that NOID to what is correct and then upload that to campus.
Currently, there are no other questions in the chat. Oh, just one. Kristen wants to know, is yesterday's campus hour recording posted to the website yet? No, not yet. I just downloaded it and I sent it to our communications. The next question from Jesse is, will the state be sending out what fixes are for tonight in an email, or will they only be posted to campus?
Yeah, I believe those are going out tomorrow, probably by tomorrow afternoon. I think we just don't have them right now because they're still trying to finalize as as of this minute exactly what those updates will be. But they're also at the same time trying to structure that email communication that you've probably received on every other release that we've had. And they're usually out by Friday afternoon. So you should be still be seeing that tomorrow afternoon. While we still have time, one other thing I can remind everyone about, a couple topics that you can take back to your organizations or discuss, internally is I've heard some feedback from EDI submitters that some of you are not receiving the forms that are generated from campus directly back through your vendor. That is something that's probably easier than accessing campus to pick up your EDI forms, and should be available to everyone. I mean, we certainly do that automatically, and that's an easier process. The other one that isn't being utilized a lot yet, but as everyone gets used to campus, you might want to consider doing is we we have the ability for you to send forms directly to campus on the claim through the FTP, and the forms sent by claim administrator. It's sort of called the XML attachment, even though it's not really an attachment process. So if that's something anyone would like to investigate or look at further as an option to sending documents to DLI that go directly into the file without having to access campus, that is an option. And as we all get more comfortable with campus, maybe that's something everyone would like to do as another way to make your business maybe work a little smoother.
Who do we contact if we want to investigate that?
I guess start with me, Bridget, and we'll set that up. If not me, you can also copy our EDI team and we can get that started.
And Bridget says, thanks. And then Jesse's asking regarding the forms populating in campus, we are still seeing that claims that filings have been accepted via EDI, but are not showing as such in campus. Are we supposed to contact the state regarding this on a claim by claim basis, or should I send a handful of claims in one correspondence?
You could probably send a handful of claims. Now, always remember that not every EDI transaction creates forms. So make sure that it's the ones that are supposed to be. If you're expecting a form and you're not seeing one, then definitely let us know. We have seen that happen in the past. We have logged items on that. So if you're seeing, let's say, an SX that you're absolutely certain should have created a NOI type form because you entered all the data correctly, please let us know and we'll try and get on that and log an item for you.
EDI or trading partners questions can be sent to dli.edi@state.mn.us. Jesse is asking, is that email the one we would or should send for the missing forms in campus if needed?
Yeah, please do that. That's a good spot to send them. Anything EDI related, and the EDI email team tries to answer any questions that come in there. Obviously, I'm sure some of you can tell by some of our answers, we're not experts on everything in campus, but we always do our best to try and direct it to who can answer the question for you. One thing I said in our meeting yesterday with insurers and TPAs is we do have pretty strong filters on our email accounts here at DLI. So if for whatever reason we're getting down to where if you haven't heard from us within a few days, you can always feel free to send us another email. We're not offended if you're trying to follow up and send us again, because we have discovered instances where your email, it looks like it should have come to us, but we never received it. So just be aware that does occasionally happen. So feel free to send again if you need to. We'll try and get back to everyone.
Hello, this is Kathy. I had asked a question earlier about the PY and submitting the employees' fees, or the employees and the attorney staff fees in one segment of 550. And then I thought somebody said that the attorneys' RORF costs and, well, just those RORF and costs would be under a separate 550 under the benefit segment. But now it says I can't have two 550s in a benefit segment.
Yeah. So next time we meet, I'll try and put together a visual for us to see this, because it is really complicated to try and talk through. But so let me do an example. Let's say you're making a payment of whatever it is. Let's say it's temp total, so 550 in the benefit segment, and you're paying that total amount that you're paying under that benefit is $1,000. But $500 is actually getting paid to the employee, and $500 is getting paid in contingent attorney's fees to the employee's attorney. So the benefit type 550 has 1,000, and then there are two payment segments. One, the payee is the employee, and that's 500, and the other, the payee is the employee's attorney, and that's the other 500. All the Heaton, RORAF costs and disbursements, all those things that were below the contingent attorney fees on the old forms, unfortunately, because of EDI, those are all lumped together, and it's in the other benefit type 340, which cannot be sent as a payment segment. So the 340 just lumps all that together. So if there was like 1,000 Heaton and 1,000 RORAF, that's just OBT is just now 2,000, and that's where it gets placed to tally up in that format. And I know it's confusing because it feels like, especially the way our old forms work, that you should be able to put that 340 somewhere, like in a payment segment. But that's not per the standards, so that's where it has to go. So I hope that helps answer it. And again, next time we meet, I'll try and have a visual for that so that we can see it a little more clearly. That's how it works in EDI. Great questions today. It shows everyone's like way ahead of the ball. Everyone's very advanced now in EDI, right? We're all becoming experts. So unless anyone has any more questions, I think we're scheduled to meet. Is it Darcy in another 2 weeks, I think? Is the next one potentially proposed?
I have not received the dates yet, but
Okay.
as I believe it's going to be every other week. Yes, every 2 weeks.
Right. It may not technically be on the schedule, but everyone look for that coming. It'll probably be in 2 weeks from today. So with that, I appreciate everyone's time. Good luck EDI reporting out there.
Thanks, John.